you. Don't worry. All right, so today is day one of getting back in the saddle, back on the schedule, back to starting once again with 12 beers for the next couple of days, reducing the overall amount of beer, reducing down. So this is called tapering. It's a technique to gradually reduce the amount of alcohol that is in the body so that the body can slowly get used to the lower and lower and lower and lower levels of this poison in the body. And so tell me what's going on, babe.
Well, currently, I'm not feeling well. I don't feel physically strong. There are things going on in my life that I need to take care of, but I feel that I can't. And it's very depressing because I'm an alcoholic and I'm not a provider. I'm currently not a provider.
Yeah.
And I've been on a disability waiting list for 2 years, being told to not work by lawyers.
Being told to be homeless. Didn't the lawyers tell you initially?
When I sat in front of the lawyer at a desk, my mother sitting next to me, my mother's suggestion was to go get on disability.
Because she couldn't stand to see you just wasting away.
So this lawyer looked at me and said, you have to be poor, you can't work, and so it's been 2 years. So I lived in missions, I lived in shelters, I lived in gutters.
You basically had to sacrifice all of your human dignity in order to be eligible for Social Security, which you paid into as you worked.
I was a 30-year truck driver.
And you were on the road.
And I paid taxes. And I put my money into the system.
Yep.
And now when I need it, it's being denied.
Yep. Yeah, and these lawyers, it's just...
And they said...
a turnstile, one after another.
I'm not kidding you. My mother, who would not lie to save my neck, was sitting right next to me. And when they told me, are you an alcoholic? I said, yeah. They said, okay.
Good. Perfect.
Yep.
Good. Make it worse.
Yep.
Make it worse. That's the way it's been. And so the very system that we're in discourages any kind of improvement, self-improvement, being able to, be a human, be a productive member of society. And these parasitic businesses like these lawyers.
And you have to consider something. These, for 2 years now, I have not given them a dime. Their billing, their payment is based on my retroactive check.
So they're trying to wangle it out and squeeze it so that you get nothing, they get all of it.
No. They get 30% of my retro check, which is whatever the last year of income that I could have potentially earned by still being a truck driver.
Wow.
So what they told me is I'm looking at $2,400 a month. So that first check would be 2,400 times 12, and they'd get 30% of that. And that's how they get paid. Well, and then I'd get $2,400 a month after that. And they don't touch that.
Well, I'm sure they'll try to find a way to touch it.
But
seriously,
when you consider it's been 2 years and they just keep telling me, just lay low, be homeless, be poor, be drunk.
The statistics actually are that people that are on disability waiting lists, I believe that about 15% of them die before they actually get any money.
Oh, yeah.
And the stats are not good, and people are quite significantly worse off after the dragging out and the waiting.
I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that I was in the rescue mission, which got you help, I'd be dead in a gutter.
Yeah.
And by the order of my lawyers.
Right. Well,
so that they could make their one-time check. But when is it going to happen? I've already been denied once. They've appealed. I'm waiting for this first appeal.
Yeah. Well, if you could go back and make a different choice of not signing up for disability, would you have, if you were looking at the options of, all right, I really have to turn my life around now, would you have chosen to try to get disability, or would you have chosen?
I'm ashamed to admit that at the time that I applied for disability was at my mother's behest. She wanted me to do it. She brought me, and at the time, my mother was supporting me. I was staying at her house. My mother and stepfather did well for themselves. And I didn't have to worry about being homeless. But the anxiety and depression of it all led me to over drinking, which led them to not want me in their house. So I got dropped off at shelters, which is what the lawyers wanted.
But the point that I'm making is that when you make a choice of reaching for disability, you're basically throwing away all of your potential. I'm not, and this is a separate issue. It's not to say that you're not already, you deserve it. If people need disability, they should be able to get it and not die in the process. It should happen instantly. But the point is,
not trying to pat myself on the back, but I worked my fucking ass off for 30 years as a truck driver, supporting children, grandchildren, supporting people, paying bills, buying a house, paying my taxes, having health insurance, doing everything you're supposed to do. And then there came a time where my mind broke.
Yep, and you needed help.
And I needed help.
And you didn't get it.
And I can't get it.
And had you gotten it immediately, you would not be in the state you are in right now.
My mind broke because I was married for 12 years and the woman just called it off while I was in a rehab. And I've never been able to get my bearings back.
Right. And that's why it's so hard now after so much time, and it's such an incredible struggle. And that's why you relapse. And so it's a journey for sure, and it takes persistence, and we have to keep getting back on the wagon. And so he was down to 5 beers a day for a couple of weeks. We had started, geez, a month and a half ago, because he was so drunk, he was hallucinating. Oh, he saw a leprechaun. He saw all kinds of fun things. And
yeah, well, I was also smoking.
It was
which is not me.
It was very.
I've never been a weed smoker.
But either way, you're the amount of alcohol that was in your body every single day exceeded 25 beers. Let me just say that, and it included wine. It included all kinds of other high test stuff.
I'm 52. I could count on two hands how many times I've smoked weed.
Okay, honey, right. The point is, you were a mess. You were so impaired, and you just kept on. And that's the thing. It's like when you are in that place where it's just give me more and more and more and more and more, whatever it is, you'll reach for motor oil if that you think that's going to give you maintain that level. And that it's not conducive of life. And so that's where he was before we got on. Okay, I really need to, he really, he agreed, he really needed to stop this, because if he kept going like that, he was going to die. And, that's a thing that I think all addicts realize. If they keep going, they are going to die. But it's do I want to die right now and give it up now? Or do I want to die later and maybe it'll kill me and I won't notice it because I'll be so high?
But the issue was that I started working full time.
Yep.
So a few weeks ago.
On the reduction plan, he got himself to a point where he was doing really well.
I was going to give up on the disability and just say, screw it. And I went back to work. I got a job.
Yep.
I was making $19.50 an hour.
Decent money.
But I realized
for a week and a half
that my health was not good. My feet, I have neuropathy in my feet.
All right, but honey,
I have thin skin on my arms, so I can't bump into things.
That's what happened. He actually, because he had a little bit of alcohol at the 5, still not being 100% steady, and also with the neuropathy, he staggered and he ripped open the thin skin on his arms. He has accelerated aging on both forearms, and so whenever he bruises himself, it's a massive bruise. And so we're working on fixing that, because that happened after another poisoning incident, which we'll go into further as we talk about all of the stuff that he's been through. But the bottom line is he ripped open his arm and all of a sudden had a breakdown. That was what triggered. And then he just went crazy with alcohol. And I came home a couple hours later from my spiritual group and found him completely drunk. And he was supposed to have been at work, didn't go to work, just blew it off. That was it. And he told me that he couldn't do this. And then he went on a week-long drunk where he was sleeping in his car and was just completely and totally pickled until we got back to some degree of balance. And so now once again, this is a journey. We're back on the plan, but because he's brought the level of alcohol up in his body once again to high levels, we now have to once more start tapering back with a planned schedule. And so now we're back on the 12 beers a day, and we're going to reduce that slowly over the course of the next few weeks. And it's a journey. It's definitely not easy, but the whole thing is that relapses happen and you have to get back in the saddle and keep going. Right, babe?
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think, to be fair, and this is a joke, get ready.
So it'll be inappropriate.
You could increase the alcohol content of the beers.
Of course, any excuse to have more beer. So anyway, that's where we're at. Okay.